Oh, I know what you're thinking.
Yeah. Oh, no. Yeah, of course, YouTube messed this up again. So I was unable to do what I thought I would do, which is fine. Let me just post this on Instagram. Can I share this? Too much to ask, probably, for YouTube. Yeah, too much to ask, of course. Let me say that I'm just posting this so people will know on Instagram. Sorry for the silence broadcast. Done. Oh, it's a shame. There we are. Hello. I am sorry. You see, YouTube, I've lamented this before, but I shall lament it again. YouTube has this strange tendency that when you have scheduled a live stream, sometimes it becomes very hard to edit it. Turns out it was very hard to edit it, but that's okay. So I couldn't join. You have to understand, I mean, you have to appreciate the complexities. I couldn't join my own live stream, but it's my live stream. So I felt like this is my party. I can cry if I want to, but I couldn't even cry because I wasn't allowed access into my own party. Just the way it is. Anyway, hello, people. How are we all doing? I'm doing quite well. Thanks for asking. I have some things to share, old things, new things. Yeah, mainly new things. I don't really have that many old things. But if we have any issues, then of course we can discuss things. My hair is interesting. It's disappearing at a rapid rate, but that's a whole different story. I have some things to share. I've been well, I think. There were some things I wanted to share. The first thing I wanted to share, it came to me in rather complicated packaging. Let me just try to reassemble this. A company offered to send me this a while ago, and I kind of forgot about it. And yesterday I went to check the mail. I did check the mail, and then I found this little bubble wrap envelope from, was it Mississauga? I don't think it was Mississauga, but it was somewhere in the GTA. And I thought, what did I get from Canada? Did I order something? Turns out I didn't order anything. It was just the thing that was coming in. It came with a couple of things that I will show you. It comes with this bookmark, which I actually like because I read, and you never have too many bookmarks because I like to read multiple books at a time, you see. It says, thinking of you and wishing you all of life's best today and always. Best wishes. And it has a Ferris wheel. I cannot immediately identify the city, but if you can, then that's most welcome. I kind of liked it. They like it. Yeah. So what else was there? There was also this, which is a postcard from Romantic Paris. This one I can identify. There is a giveaway. I won't tell you what it is, but it's a giant tower. That was the hint. And then there was this baggie of linen. And in there was a little cardboard box and a piece of lint, which is now removed. In the little cardboard box, which says made in China, here probably left, right, left, mirrored. is a product. That is the product. You see how experienced I am at this. It is by, I'm not entirely sure. I'm going to have to try to figure this out, how to say this. The brand is Fashosma or something. Fasjosma. Fashosma. Fashosma. I want to say Fashosma because I like saying that. It is a little leather notebook cover. This would go well with certain Midori products, I think. And I also think that Field Notes should fit. It would be a bit big for Field Notes. It's a little bigger than a Field Notes cover. It is leather. It smells like Army surplus store. I hope this is a universal descriptor of that specific olfactory sensation. Yeah, I actually kind of like that smell. Anyway, so you can put in your notebook. It's nice leather. It's not super thick, but I have seen thinner for sure, which I kind of like. It doesn't make it too heavy. Then there is, so you can put your notebook in both covers if you like. And there is a little pen loop, which I don't think is going to be particularly successful for my pens. Let me flip this. Oh, yeah, I was afraid of that. Which more or less holds the Pilot Metropolitan. I can't get it out, which is troublesome. But not as troublesome as when you can't get it in. Moving on. Now, here we go with what else? There is a slot. In fact, there are two slots for business cards or things. Now, I kind of like this because I thought that could also make for a pretty interesting pen loop, which I'm pretty sure is not the intended function. I really think this is a card holder, as you can see here. But overall, I kind of like this. Now, the real question is, of course, can I find a notebook that fits it? Because I don't really think I have a lot that fits this. Oh, maybe I have one of those small ones from Lockbee. I'm figuring this out as we go. I thought I would make you a participant of my thought process here, you know? The writing is not mirrored. Thank you, Stephen Omenon. I appreciate it. Good. That's good to know. Well, in that case, I can show you Fashosma, right? Fashosma. Fashosma. Anyway, so I have this, which is fun. Then there is another product I can show you. I think since I did this last stream, I did get some other things, but you may have already seen the review. So why don't I start with that, because then it's not so exciting, and then I can show you a more exciting thing after that. I did get my Furore. I said Furore, but I was corrected, and this is good correction. Furore. Grande. So this is the big Furore, and I was very, very happy with how that turned out, because it is a very attractive pen. And I don't think I've shown you this live, but I've already done the review, but still, I thought it might be fun for you to see. I am very happy with this particular pen, because it is no secret that I like the Leonardo pens. Let me show you the regular Furore. I'm sorry for the zipper. So here's the regular Furore, which is a great pen, and I do really love it, and the material is just beautiful. But it is a regular size pen, and I like bigger pens. And the Grande, as the name suggests, is indeed bigger. Same material. This one turns out a little bit more turquoise. This one is a little bit darker blue in my specific finishes. Both have wonderful chatoyance. That nice just reflection. It's just beautiful. It's beautiful. And I really like it. So I like them both. There is the interesting thing on the new Leonardo's, the new clip. So you see this clip here, which is a little thinner. Can you see? It's a little thinner, which I kind of like. Some people online did not like it. And that's, of course, the fun thing of pens, that you can like certain things and not like other things. The only thing that I would I would say, I actually forgot to point this out in the review, which was a massive oversight because this is always something I do, but I forgot there is no ink window. And unlike with the other Momento Zeros, the initial Momento Zeros where you could unscrew the section and there was sort of a captive converter in it, it wasn't, yeah, I just had someone commented on my website and I actually agreed with that. Should we call it a captive converter? Because for all intents and purposes, it was just a very big plastic clear tube inside, which held more ink than a regular converter, a lot more ink than a regular converter. So then is it a captive converter? Does it matter? I'm not saying this about the person who commented that, but in general, does it matter? Should we, this is getting very serious, Jesus, should we worry about the term captive converter? Or can we just call it a piston filler? If it is an actual physical converter that you can't remove from the pen, I mean a regular, you know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something like this, right? This is in the pen, but it comes out. But imagine you have this thing stuck in the pen. There's no way to remove it. Then I would say that's a captive converter. Put 10 pictures of that on a wall. Invite your neighbors and say, is it a captive converter? They say, yes, it's a captive converter. Everybody agrees unanimously, as they do in many things. But now you have, I just sold that, my other Grande, so I can't really show you this, but on the regular Grande, you could unscrew the barrel and have a thick plastic thing. It looked like this, because I think it was that mechanism. It looked like this, but I can't take this off because it's, but like this. Like you have that plastic thing on the inside, you have a metal thing there, and it was bigger than a regular, I should ink this up, it's a fun pen. It was bigger than a regular converter, but it can't come out. But then is it a converter? Because basically that's a plastic tube that screws in to the end of the section with a piston that has a bigger capacity than a regular converter. So is it or is it not a captive converter? Let me know. Because we have to end this debate once and for all. Because I kind of agree. Does it really matter? In that case, I don't know if you really have to make such a big deal of, well, it's a captive converter because it's bigger, you know? I just don't know. Anyway, Furore, one big improvement in my mind of the Furore, Grande, is that the cap lip now tapers. Whereas on the old Furore, I just knocked something over, don't worry, it's just a bottle of water, but it was capped. You see this? Here it was straight. And the old Momento Zero Grandes, they also have that straight cap lip, but now it's tapered. And on the Momento Zero Grande, the flat top, the regular Grande, the cap lip is also is also tapered in the 2020 model. In the old ones, it was straight. I kind of like this tapered look because I think it looks very sleek. I really like it. So anyway, I thought I would make a giant deal out of that and just waste your time by explaining that. But yeah. Marsh Drifter says we could consider it a different type of piston cell filler. Maybe we need a new term, internal piston. Yeah, but then what's the internal piston? Is a Mont Blanc 149 an internal? I'm not saying it's not a good idea, but is a 149 an internal piston or Pelicans or these kind? Is that an internal piston, or is the thing an internal piston? And does it matter? Did I already talk about the Momento Zero Grande with a number 8 nib? No, because I don't have one. But it's an interesting concept, and I have not personally seen one, as in held it, but I do really like that idea. So I'm very excited to see if that will happen, and if it does, then I will con Salvatore out of one. I'm not joking. Now, what else did I have? I had another thing to show you, and then we can get into all sorts of questions. But got this. Was that, you ask? Glad you asked. This is a Desiderata pen company. BAMF, which stands for badass, because there may be children watching. I'm not going to say it out loud, but here's what I'm going to do. Oh, couldn't open my accessory pouch. Why is it so blurry? Don't worry about it. I'm going to let you read it for yourself. This is a cap. This is a barrel. Desiderata Pen Company. Badass. Exactly. But I like it. Have I inked it yet? No. And let me explain to you why. When I do a review, then I have to spend some time with a pen. This is why I don't understand unboxings, because if you just take something out of a box and you can't review it, you can't, I think, really have an opinion about that product, because you've literally just taken it out of a box. So how can you say anything sensible about it? But that's just me, right? I haven't inked this up yet because this is the pen that comes with that zebra. I should have left that thing on. The zebra, here we go again. You don't have anywhere to go, do you? Because it's a pandemic, so it doesn't matter. Zebra G nib insert with the feed that Pierre makes. Pierre Miller, the owner of Desiderata. Very nice section. I really like that material. It's just really, I just love that red it's very pretty. The Zebra G nibs. First of all, it's a BAMF with a big G. I really like that. The fact that it has a G nib. But beyond that, they do at some point corrode. So I want to ink this up when I'm very close to doing the review, so I can try it for a bit and then do the review. But right now I'm not ready to do that review because of time. It's final exam time soon, so it's the end of the term for me. So I need a little bit of time with this one. But then I'm going to do that. So I can't yet tell you how it functions. I'm sure it'll function very well. And then I will, of course, do the review, and then you will know. It also has the filling system that Pierre makes, and I can tell you it's very smooth, very pleasant to use. And he makes the springs too. I think he said he designed the spring. I have to reread the letter that came with it. Sorry if I spread misinformation. #alternative fact. But yeah, he basically makes the filling system in-house. He makes the feed in-house. He makes the pens. I think it's really, really neat. As to the size of the pen, I think it's a nice size. I think this would work for many people. Does it post? I haven't tried that. It looks like the cap fits on the back of the barrel, but it's very loose. So I wouldn't say this really posts. But in my mind, this is big enough. Look, if Pierre makes this, I met him 2017 in DC. We checked if I had relatively large hands. His hands are something like this of mine. So if he can use this, then most likely, I would say 99% probability you'll be able to use it. So it's a nice pen. I don't think it requires any posting. However, as I said, I haven't inked it yet, so I can't give you that opinion, but I like it. I like the looks of it. And I like there's a good eye for detail, which I really appreciate. So for example, it would be perfectly fine in my mind if this part was not red, but was black as well. But now it is red, which just makes for a visually, I think, very appealing pen model. And I really like that. I like that kind of eye for detail, that level of attention for detail, attention to detail. So I'm very, very eager to try this out. Plus, it's kind of fun to have to carry around a pen that has this name, doesn't it? Yeah, that's what I thought. All right, let me scroll back a little bit so I can see if there were any questions that I should address. Okay, because that's what I had to show you. I don't think I have anything new beyond that that I haven't shown before. No, I don't think so. So let's talk about things. Let me just clean up a little bit here as we go. Let me see if we got any questions that are pressing questions that require attention. Here's a Mandalorian spoiler alert. So if you don't want to, if you're saving yourself for the full series or something, when I do this and the spoilers are over, I'm going to talk now. What about Grogu? Think a Jedi is going to show up and train him? I thought it was a very interesting. I mean, that he was Force sensitive, we knew. So I think it's a very nice touch that he was trained in the Jedi Temple and all that. No, this was not. This was not the end of the spoilers. I should hold my hands. Talk without my hands. This is difficult for me. I'm going to give more spoilers. I have not watched the animated Clone Wars series or the Rebel series because I cannot bring myself to watch animated series. This is not a reflection on the series. It's something in me. I can't watch that stuff. It doesn't capture my attention, which is a shame because I know there's a lot to it, a lot of backstory explained, but I just can't do it. So anyway, it was nice to see a live version of Ahsoka. I mean, that was fun. I thought it was a fun episode. I think they did a good job. What I really like, also with Grand Admiral Thrawn, I remember reading about Grand Admiral Thrawn in the original Heir to the Empire. Was it Heir to the Empire? The original trilogy from Timothy Zahn, back in the day when that came out. I remember that. So I'm excited that they are tying together some expanded universe stuff, which I know Thrawn is now canon. I'm not going to nerd out too much here, but I know that. But I like that they're trying to connect the animated work and the live action Star Wars stuff. I think that's very interesting. Opens up all kinds of perspectives. I think it's very nice. I hope that they will also follow through with that and not just pretend to set up big story arcs and then do not follow through on that. So one of those previous episodes had Bo-Katan, and now we have Ahsoka, and we have this kind of stuff with Thrawn. Well, then also show those people. And if Bo-Katan is trying to reclaim Mandalore, then also show that, because otherwise I think it's just hand waving, which I would find a missed opportunity. But I don't know if they will have the budget and the whole process to do something as big as that in a TV series, not a movie. Having said that, I'm really enjoying The Mandalorian. I think it's very entertaining. And I think that's how you should look at these things. It's not Shakespeare. It's never going to be Shakespeare. We shouldn't take it too seriously. We shouldn't have to worry too much about potential plot holes, because there always will be. Take it for what it is and enjoy it. It's entertainment. And I think it's very neat entertainment. A bit of gunslinging and such, kind of has a nice vibe to it. End of spoilers. Okay, what else? Hello from Michigan. Have you ever tried a Lamy Dialogue 3? I have. I've reviewed it too. So it's an interesting pen. If you like heavier pens, it's jokingly called a baseball bat. Obviously, it's not that big. That's what she said. But, well. Anyway. It's a pretty girthy pen. And unlike most pens, it doesn't taper down, so it stays very girthy, and that's not for everyone. So if you're considering getting that pen, then I would definitely watch some reviews to at least get a feeling for the size. I know you can never really do that in a video or in pictures or whatever, but it's big. And here's a marker. I remember it to be not quite this diameter, but imagine that this this doesn't really taper down, right? So it's kind of like writing with something like this. And that's just not for everyone. There is no tapering to the section, no hourglass, no belch, just fat. Not for everyone. Having said that, the Lamy Gold nibs, although they're not really my preferred design, both in nibs and pens, the Lamy Gold nibs often are wonderful nibs. I think they're a lot more pleasant than the Lamy steel nibs, which can also be fun, but they're very rigid. I'm not saying the Lamy gold nibs are flex nibs. They're definitely not. But there is a nice slight bounciness to them. It's a very pleasant writing experience. So I would absolutely recommend it for that. But the model is special. So if you can, go to a pen shop and try it out. But if you can't, get some reviews. Yeah. What else do we have? What else? Sorry, I'm just reading comments. I'm sorry. I'm a simple man. I can only do one thing at a time. Adam asks, in one of your recent videos, you said ink reviews are too difficult to properly show on video. So my question is, do you think ink reviews on YouTube aren't accurate? Maybe I shouldn't watch them. Well, I can give a very cynical answer to that. I can give a realistic answer. The very cynical answer is they're probably never accurate. The somewhat more realistic answer is, think about all the variables that come into play. The lighting of the video. My lighting is not that great, okay? I'm not destroying anyone's illusions here. I don't have studio lighting. Some reviewers do. Matt from the Pen Habit, I did this to my nose. This was not a veiled thing, giving Matt the finger. I like Matt a lot. We're still in touch. Matt had a fantastic studio setup. I'm not really ready to invest 10 grand in a studio setup for my pen reviews. So you kind of get what you get, which I like to think of as the charm of my reviews. And I think for pens, that's okay. I try to put reasonable pictures on the website, and I try to give the feeling of a pen. I convey the feeling of a pen. But with inks, I can't do that. With inks, it really is a matter of, it kind of has to look the way it looks. And if the lighting is a little off, and the paper is not completely white on camera, but it's a little off-white, then the color of the ink is going to be off. So it's very hard. And then there's not just the lighting. There's the paper that someone uses, which, again, this is not a big factor because you can find white paper, right? I don't think a lot of people would do ink reviews on, say, a peach-colored Rhodia because it doesn't really make sense. So you can find white paper. That's not the issue. Then there's the pen you use, which is a bit of an issue. But of course, I mean, I think that's an of course statement. You're going to see more of an ink in a broader nib than in a finer nib. Someone commented in my 10 personal favorite inks video. I've seen a review of a couple of inks and SBREBROWN was in it, but it was used in a fine nib and it looked orange. Yeah, in a fine nib, that can happen, right? I was contacted by a person at some point who said, I got SBREBROWN. I don't understand what the fuss is about because everybody says it shades so well, but it doesn't for me. So am I missing something? I said, what pens are you using? And it was only extra fine and fine nibs. Yeah, then you're not going to get any shading. Right? It's just saying, you're not going to get any shading. So there is the lighting. There is also the camera. There is the white balance of the camera. But then there's the whole other minefield, which is the calibration of your personal device's screen, whatever it is, computer, tablet, phone, it doesn't matter. But it does matter, right? Because they will be calibrated differently. And there is no way to control for these variables. Now, having said all of this, if someone is reviewing a green ink and it looks red on your screen, well, then there's something off, right? But the very subtle nuances of a certain ink, you can only see with your eyes on your paper in front of your nose. You can't see it online. And again, people can do all sorts of things. I think some people do wonderful ink reviews. But I also spend typically quite a bit of time on the pictures and the camera setup, all that stuff. Will these reviews give you at least an idea of an ink? Of course. But a review is more than a visual thing. There's also someone describing something. I happen to have this ink in this pen now. It's a little dry, but usually it's quite wet. I'm sorry, it must be the pen, right? Or, well, it doesn't shade particularly well, but usually I use this kind of paper and it shades more. I think if you take all those things into account, then you're going to get a pretty good impression of what an ink is like because you know what you want. If it's about certain properties, Is the ink wet? Is the ink dry? Well, that's not even very subjective, because if someone has only used super dry inks, then that particular ink may be wet to them, but to you it may be dry. So that's already an issue. But let's assume that we can circumvent those things. 3 reviewers out of 4 say this ink is wet. Well, then it's probably wettish ink, right? So there is that. You can get a feeling for that. You can get a feeling for shading, even just looking at the pictures. Even if the pictures are not color calibrated, I said that right, didn't I? Color calibrated perfectly, you will still get an idea whether the ink shades or not. The real issue lies in the absolutely perfectly represented shade of the ink on your screen. Well, that's probably not going to happen, because computer screens work differently from the human eye. That's a whole different story. But you will get an impression. If you look at a couple of reviews, it should give you a pretty good feeling of whether you want that ink or not. And then the final thing is the hard problem of consciousness. I don't even know if you perceive an ink the same way I do, because our eyes and our brains are different. So it's possible that what looks like one thing to me looks like a different thing to you. Right? Right. But that's a very serious matter. Again, you'll get an impression. Don't be discouraged. I hope this was I know there was a long answer, but I hope it was a nuanced answer. You will find people. I'm not one of those people. I have old videos on inks, not Inkcyclopedia. They're called few more interesting inks, that kind of stuff. They're terrible, because the lighting is horrid. So there too, it's a matter of, take my word for it. This is a nice red. And then maybe you want to check it out. That's all. I'm just going through comments. Hey, Stephen, watching you again after a few years. Met you a few years back at the Madrid Pen Show. That was a good show. A fun show. When I was an awkward kid, I'm considering getting into academia. How do you balance your life and work? Well, it's hard. And I can go off on a very long rant now, which I will not do. But it can be hard. Academia has the charm that it is not really a 9-to-5 job, but it's very easy to work a lot more than 9 to 5 hours, which a lot of people in academia do. The downside to that is that it can actually impact your life. So you do have to find a balance. And if a balance is what you seek to find, then you must set certain boundaries and you must not do certain things. So, for example, sometimes it's a matter of saying, after 5 p.m., I'm not answering any more emails, or something like that. It becomes, in my mind, easier the more you do it. But it is a balancing act. And it is a thing that can be a little tough. Yeah, that's what I would say. Having said that, academia is great fun, and you should absolutely do it. But it can be tough, right? It can be a little tough to get into and get a job and all that stuff. But what field is easy to get a job in these days anyway? So if it's truly what you want, then it can be done. And the best of luck in doing so. Now, what else do we have? Interesting. Alain says, my scare with the idea of a captive converter is that a converter is typically a fairly flimsy piece of plastic. So the term, despite myself, makes me think about something not as sturdy as a piston. No, I get that. I think, but if you think, for example, of the Leonardo Momento Zero Grandes that have that thing, the plastic with all that, I think those are pretty robust. I would say so. I would say they're pretty robust. And I'm just thinking, I don't remember having had a No, I don't remember having had a captive converter break. So maybe it's not as terrible as it may seem. I'm just reading comments. Here's a question: what kind of nib you got in there? I think we were at that point talking about the Furore. My Furore Grande, this is going to take me a while, has a 14K broad nib. It's a very nice nib. Yes. It's the old Bock, though. It's not the new Yovo. I took the gold nib out of the Grande, the regular Momento Zero Grande, and I pawned off the Grande to someone. But he wanted a fine nib, so it was fine. Hashtag boom. What else do we have? What ink do you put in those? I've been following the Desiderata for a while, but unsure what ink goes in it. Regular fountain pen ink or India Japanese calligraphy? No, absolutely fountain pen ink. It's really meant to be used with fountain pen ink, as far as I understand the product. It's not. It's because it has a feed. It has everything. I would not put anything but fountain pen ink in it. I will verify this with Pierre, but let me put it this way: I'd be very surprised if this was a product meant for India ink. I wouldn't try that. Can I talk a little bit in my native language? Yes. Nederlands. Dat is Nederlands. Want ik ben Nederlands. Dutch, in other words. I am indeed from the Netherlands, so I can do this. What else do we have? If you had $50, which fountain pen would you buy? Assume you have no fountain pens so far. I think what I've just shown you, this is a nice pen. It's a Metropolitan, Pilot Metropolitan. I think it's a very nice pen. Also because you can get those Plumix calligraphy nibs if you want something fun to play with. It's nice. It comes with a little squeeze type converter, making sure there's no ink in there, which is kind of fun. And they're fun pens. They're well made, very solid, I find, and they're not too expensive. So if you want to try out a pen, I think that's a good option. The Lamy Safari is another option, but the Lamy Safari has a very specific grip section, and that's simply not for everyone. One does not simply walk into a Safari, but you can. Sorry. Yeah. I have too much fun with this. But you can just walk into a Metropolitan and it'll work. And if you're in the UK, then it's not a Metropolitan, but it's an MR, I believe. It had a different name because of some sort of copyright in Metropolitan, whatever. But still, it's the same pen. It's just a different name. Actually, it's not the same pen because I think those may actually take international cartridges, but the model is the same. The model is the same. The nib is the same. It's just that. Will I be... Let me just double check because I know what the question is. Let me just double check. Will I be reviewing the Titan 720? Yes. I thought I already had, but maybe it's not public yet. Yes. It is scheduled for January 11th. The Titan 720. Now, if we're not sure what I'm talking about when I say Titan 720, we're talking about this. This is a pen made by my man, William Shakur, a friend. This is a 3D printed pen with a triangular profile, kind of modeled loosely verbatim, as the kids say, after the Omas 360 Magnum. But as you can see, it's a big pen. It's mainly fat, girthy, but it's really quite nice. It has a number 8 nib, in this case titanium, which I think they'll come with, and that's it. It has a piston filler, an actual piston filler with an actual piston, which is big capacity. It's just a really cool pen, triangular. But yes, the review is shot, it's uploaded, so all that's just waiting to go online, just like many others. So, what else do we have? A requirement for ink reviews is that they describe the colors they see in the ink. Yes, I get why. But but seriously, I do think that is important, right? In general, because again, we've had this discussion, so I won't rephrase everything. But what is dark green to you may not be dark green to me, right? So I do think that is actually an important point. I have recently got a papier plume ink that I really like, but it skips in every pen that I use. Clean every pen, switch back to Irishizuku, and things are fine again. So it must be the ink. I agree. Some inks are like that. If it is drier, for example, then it could have that effect. Yeah. 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 This is a good point from Jenny. When buying art supplies, I try to watch people who have reviewed things I already have to get an idea of their experience compared to mine. I place more, I hope you can hear that, microphone picks that up. There was a car alarm. I place more import to those who notice the same things I do, etc. I think it's a very good idea in general. Different reviewers, I'm just switching back to pens now, but different reviewers have different styles. And if you know that a certain reviewer likes those products that you like, for example, well, then you know what to expect, right? And you kind of know that if they say X, then that X you're probably going to agree with that. And that's just the way it is. It's an important point. Different people have different styles, and that's okay. And I think that's the charm of it all, isn't it? It's the charm. And Matt has a specific style, had a specific style in reviewing products. Figbud has a different style. And that's the fun of things. And there are so many people now reviewing pens that there are so many options to choose from yeah, I really like. There is one person, I'm just trying to remember her name. Give me 1 second because I just need to look this up on my phone. There is one person whose ink reviews I really like. Chris Sains. It says youtube.com/user/snowball7470. And she does, Chris does really nice ink reviews. I also find her a very sweet and pleasant person, which I like. And in this world, we don't always get that, do we? So Chris's ink reviews, for example, are very nice, and I really enjoy them. And she does, in my mind, a very good job at doing these things. So I'm very much looking forward to her channel growing and growing and growing, because I really think she deserves that attention. So again, I think it's a good idea. Look at what you know, products that you know, see them reviewed by people, and then see how much you agree. And of course, you can disagree with someone. That's not the point. But if you know that their opinion matches yours, then you kind of know what to expect in reviews. I think it's a very good suggestion. What is your daily EDC pack or bag? I have recently been using a smaller bag, which I really like, from Eddie Bauer, which is, I should probably review that. It's a crossbody sling bag, not very large. in a camo pattern, which is not too camo-y, so it's kind of nice, which I really like a lot. And I don't have it here, otherwise I would show it to you. But it's a very it's not too big. I have this tendency to buy bigger versions of things, like, oh, let's get the highest capacity backpack and the biggest, like that. But it's not always practical. So I kind of limit myself to that. Yeah, there's a video in there. I should do that, because I know that people find that interesting. And it holds some pens. It has a little admin pouch. It does everything I need. We continue. I use mostly blues. I want to try some red inks. What is your favorite red ink besides Corn Poppy Red? Corn Poppy Red. But Schaefer Red is not bad either, and is more economical, but it's a good bright red. You see, I don't like red inks that are orange. I don't like that orange component. When I have a red, I don't want a reddish orange, or if you prefer an orangey red, but I just like to see a bright red. And Corn Poppy Red is a bright red that also shades nicely, which I really like about it. But then there's the Schaefer, which shades a little less, but it is a bright, intense red. And from that perspective, I think it's a very nice red ink that I really enjoy using. Yeah. Yeah, and then there is, Diamine Red Dragon is recommended by Padrino, and I haven't tried that one. I think I may have at some point, but then it was a sample I had. I've heard very good things about it, so I'll probably try that out. Yeah. Jacob asks, did you get the titanium in its new Banff? I don't know, because Pierre just sent me this, so I don't know. I have to check that with him. I don't know. I didn't purchase it. What else? What do you teach? I teach psychology with an emphasis on cognitive neuroscience things. So at this term, I taught introductory psychology and brain and behavior. Next term, I will teach 2 sections of a statistics course. I will also do sensation and perception, which I really enjoy, because it's about the cognitive neuroscience of the senses, which I think is super, super cool. And I will teach a course called Conducting Research in Cognitive Psychology. That's what my PhD is in, so that's where I'm supposed to shine. Where must a fountain pen lover visiting the Netherlands go? Well, there is Akkerman in The Hague, and then there is Akkerman in Amsterdam. Both are nice stores. I personally have a slight preference for Akkerman in The Hague, but that's because we used to live very close to it, so we spent a lot of time there. I think it's a very nice shop, also a very nice area of The Hague. So that I would say is absolutely recommended. I'm assuming that's also the area where you're going to be, because most people don't go to the south of the Netherlands. If you are there is La Couronne du Comte, which is a nice shop. And of course, there is a little bit northwest-ish. Appelboom, also a very nice shop. And there are many others, but the others are kind of in the east of the country. And my guess is you're going to be in the area of Amsterdam, because that's where most people are visiting the Netherlands. So then Amsterdam and The Hague are very doable. From Amsterdam, I mean, The Hague would be about 45 minutes by train, but it's worth it. Do you have an idea of which pens will make it in your GOAT video this year? Yeah, I did make a list, and then I checked it twice, because that's what you do this time of the year. Having said that, I don't remember what's on the list, but I can give you a couple hints. What I tried to do this year, more so than previous years, is think about what pens I keep coming back to. And there will be some new pens on it. For example, I got my classic pens LB6 this year. It's been inked since I got it in summer. It is now winter. It is still inked. So clearly I like that pen, right? So that's going to be on there. It probably won't be a surprise that the Furore Grande is going to be on there. These are not, one is a new pen to me, the other is a new pen, right? It came out this year. The LB6 didn't come out this year, but it's new to me. So I try to incorporate some pens that are new this year, but again, my thought was, I've been doing these greatest, sorry, maybe I should have said that. So at the end of each year, I do a greatest of all time pen video, which is kind of a misnomer at this point, because clearly there are different pens on it every year. So it's not really greatest of all time, it's the greatest of that year. But now I went down that hole. I've gone down that hole, so now I've got to stick to it. But what is a greatest of all time pen? The original video I did had some things on it like the Platinum Preppy, which I still think is a fantastic pen. It's a $4 pen and it writes and it doesn't stop writing. And I think it's a great introductory pen for many people. But I don't have a Preppy and I don't use, well, I think I actually do have, I may have, anyway, I don't use a Preppy. So then it becomes a personalized list, kind of like what I did with those inks. Which inks really matter to me, but also which pens really matter to me? Which pens do I keep reaching for? Which pens do I ink up again and again? And there are a few that keep popping up. One of them is the Koenig King size. I have that inked up a lot. Not right now, but I have it inked up a lot. And this year, I've had it inked up a lot of the time. So I'm trying to look at it from that perspective. What do I keep reaching for? Because I have certain pens I don't use that much. And I don't use all the time. And so, for example, I've had the Namiki Emperor on that list for a number of years now. I still have it. I still love it. I still think it's a fantastic pen. But because it's so big, I don't have it inked up all the time because it doesn't really fit any pen cases comfortably. And I do have that, and I know I have that custom case for it, but this is a big case. This is basically the size of my face, right? So I don't necessarily carry this around all the time. So I've been trying to make these kinds of decisions. It was a very long answer, but that's the new approach for me. What else do we have? Is there any good blood-looking ink? Closest I could get is by mixing Diamine Red Dragon with Pelican 4002 Red. Oxblood is too dark. I've not really asked myself that question a whole lot, but I find with red inks, just like with many other inks, a lot of them are different, wet than dry, right? And I found with a lot of reds, that's the case too, that they are just a different color, wet than dry. Oxblood wet is very different from oxblood dry. So I understand what you mean. I just don't have the answer. Thoughts on selling a small collection for one pen and one ink that you will use? Yeah, I think it's not an insane thought. And I think at a certain point in your collecting, you may reach the stage where you think, now I have 1,100. I've never had 1,100 pens, but so to speak, now I have 1,100 pens, but which pens do I use? I say again, I don't have that much left. People sometimes have the image that I must own hundreds of pens. I don't. They fit in a 40-pen case at this point. There is nothing else. There's nothing left. And I'm not saying that they're all $5 pens, but I mean, but this is what I have, and this is what I like, and I don't feel the need to really have any other pens, really. In fact, I'm kind of getting to a point where I think, yeah, this is it. I don't. there are very few pens now that are launched that make me think, well, I'd better immediately sign up to get that, because I just don't have that anymore. What does SBRE mean? Stephen, Brendan, Ronald, Erik. 4 names. Mystery. There was a time on the Fountain Pen Network, not long after I started doing reviews, there was a discussion and people thought it was an Eastern European name, B.R.E or something. It's not that. It's just 4 initials. But it's become a thing. Have you watched an ink guy ink reviews? I have not, but I've heard very good things about it. This is not a reflection on the ink guy, it's a reflection on me and the amount of time I have. Yeah, no. Yeah, again, I've heard very good things. Yeah. What else do we have? Do you have, I need to scroll. Do you have any knowledge of the Artisan Ballot 42 or experience? There's a profound lack of information online in regard to Artisan Ballot. No, I have no knowledge of this. I'm sorry. I must look into it. I have seen artist pens. Is that the same thing? No. I have no knowledge of this pen. I'm sorry. Do you like living in Alberta? I do. This person, Gary, also says, I live in Halifax in Nova Scotia. And here in Nova Scotia, the pen pickings are lean. Yeah, look, it's not like Europe in North America when it comes to pen shops. But I do really like the landscape, for example, of the province. That's been a lot of fun, and that's been a lot of fun to me, going out and seeing things. So that I absolutely enjoy. Yeah, but yeah, it's pen wise. I mean, I live in Red Deer between Edmonton and Calgary, and both Edmonton and Calgary have fountain pen stores. So I shouldn't complain too much. But yeah, it's different. It's different in North America from Europe. Yeah. I mean, the Netherlands alone, almost every province of the 12 provinces has at least one dedicated fountain pen store. And the provinces are much smaller than you would find in Canada or the States in the US, of course. But still, it's different in that regard. But then there's the joy of pen clubs and such, which you can always explore. Which fountain pen company has got more reputation, is more classic, the Waldmann or Otto Huth? I don't know. Both of these are very classic German companies. I don't know how I would classify one as being more classic than the other. I think they're both good companies. I don't think I've ever used an Otto Huth. I should contact them. Con them out of a pen. Your sessions and Marcus Aurelius' meditations have been very interesting. Will you be doing more philosophy? Would you consider taking up Spinoza? Perhaps. The talking, was it talking about Stoicism? I don't know the title of my own video series. I'm sorry. The Talking About Stoicism series is very interesting for me to do. It gets much less viewership than the pen reviews, which I would expect on a pen channel. But the interesting thing is those people who do enjoy the videos do seem to really enjoy those videos and keep coming back for more, which in my mind is a good quantifier of success. it's not always about the views. It's also about the engagement of the viewers with regards to those videos. And I think the engagement of the viewers in the Stoic videos is actually very good. So I enjoy doing that. I enjoy doing that because the school of thought of Stoicism has been very helpful to me at times. So I like to share that. And there definitely also are limitations to Stoicism, but I think some of the principles, I try to make the videos in such a way, the principles are illustrated in a way that you can use it in everyday life without going too hardcore about Stoicism, because you can, and then it becomes kind of weird. Spinoza is definitely an interesting character. That could be an interesting one at some point, because at some point we're going to be done with the meditations. Now, I think given that we have done Epictetus and then Marcus Aurelius, I think the next one I might focus on the letters, Seneca's letters. And we've kind of had that trinity of Stoics. But yeah, no, I would consider it. Yeah, we'll see where that goes with that series. I have quite a bit of, I don't have it here, but I have quite a bit of meditations left. Yeah. Yeah. What else do we have? Do you still use, I know I've kind of answered this, but I'm going to answer it anyway. Do you still use the preppy marker and highlighters? I don't use them anymore. No. And I don't know why exactly, but I stopped using them at some point. Yeah. Got to love the I only have 40 pens, as if that weren't still a lot of pens. Well, I mean, given that I know people with 1,100 pens or more, I don't think it's that particularly bad. Have you heard any rumors on when Conant might be open again for business? No. I have not. What can you tell me about the vestibular ocular system and large motor movement? Well, that is an interesting question. The vestibular system is not the same as the balance system, but it makes contributions to balance. And one of the interesting things that the vestibular system contributes to, for example, is compensation in the eyes for head movement. So, for example, if I stare at my webcam right now and I do this, then my eyes stay relatively straight. So there's actually not just movement left to right and up and down. There's also a torque, like a torsion going on in your eyeballs. It's complicated because there's 6 muscles, not pushing because muscles can't push, but pulling on your eyeballs to do all these things. And the vestibular system does make a contribution to that. The vestibular system itself is complicated because it consists of 2 components. I'm not going to spend too much time on this because not everybody finds it equally interesting, but I do. This is basically the inner ear. So this would be inside your ear. This is about P-shaped, and this is about P-shaped. This is what allows you to hear. So that's the cochlea, not the cochlea, but the cochlea, BAMF, which allows you to hear. But then there is these structures. These are the 3 semicircular canals, which basically, I'm really simplifying now, but basically liquid runs through this, okay, in 3 different orientations, right? Like this, and like this, and like this. So that, as that liquid runs through those they're called the semicircular canals, right? That allows you, that is your brain, to know if you're doing this, or this, or this. Oh, that cracked. I'm all right now. So there is that. This is semicircular canals. But then you also, this is not a very detailed model, but then you also have the otolith organs. And the otolith organs They work a little differently. They're called the saccule and the utricle, but they're two organs. They're also in this, like, roughly in this area. They basically have, look at it this way, they have hair cells on them. You also have hair cells in those semicircular canals. That's what the liquid runs past in all those directions. The otolith organs have hair cells embedded in a sort of a gelatinous layer with otoliths on them. So the otoconia, the otolith stones, those are kind of crystals which are embedded in that layer of gelatin. And when you linearly accelerate, or when you are affected by gravity, right, those gelatinous layers kind of move forward or backward, depending on what's going on, because of those stones on top of them, which is crystals. But they weigh something, and there was a little bit of delay, but then that weight kind of pulls on those gelatinous flaps, layers, one on the left, one on the right, and that allows you to feel that you're accelerating, right, or that you're stopping, and that kind of stuff. And all that together gives you a sense of vestibular sensation. Now, if you want an illustration of vestibular sensation and how that interacts with your eyes, that's the last thing I will say, because again, I know this is not of interest to everyone. If you want a sense of what your what your vision contributes to your sense of vestibulation, stand on one leg. Well, it's not that difficult. But now you can do it now. Stand on one leg, close your eyes, see what happens, and then immediately open your eyes, because you're going to see what happens. And the older you get, the harder that gets to do. So your visual input is also required for the vestibular sense, and that is required for you to have a sense of balance and just a sense of, in a vestibular way, like where you are, how you are oriented in space. I don't know if this was useful, but this is what came to mind quickly. I overscrolled a bit. I'm sorry. What's a good first fountain pen? I recommend to my friends the Lamy Safari, but is there another that's a great first pen? Well, there is the Pilot Metropolitan I just mentioned, which I think is another very good option as a first pen. And even if you want something even simpler, this would make a kick-ass ring, by the way. Just saying. Anyway, Platinum Preppy, right? Solid pen too. Platinum Preppy, even more inexpensive. Do you have a Grail pen you wish to own? Asks Tajinder. At this moment, I don't think so. I think I've been very fortunate to obtain what I wanted. I'm awaiting the arrival of one pen still, but that's going to take a while because it's in the US and the borders are closed. But at some point I will have that. And then I don't know. I just don't know. I don't know what else I need. Don't know. This is a good, interesting double question. Do you watch series and How to Live with Someone with Paranoid Schizophrenia? I watch certain series, but my problem with series is going to sound very lame, but I know if anyone can sort of like this appeals to you too. It's a big time commitment. I would rather watch a 2 or these days 3-hour movie and be done with it than watch 8 seasons of series that used to have 25, 30 episodes a season, which are all 20, 30 minutes. It does happen, but it's not very common. Certain series I make exceptions for. For example, we already talked about the Mandalorian, so I don't have to belabor the point, but longer series with more seasons. I have really liked, this may sound odd, but I have really liked that 70s show. I thought that was really funny, especially initially. I thought that was very good. I have really liked BoJack Horseman. I'm not really an animated series person in general, but BoJack Horseman I thought was particularly good. At moments very dark. It really focuses on a couple of the more intense, unpleasant aspects of life. Deals with drug abuse, deals with the price of fame, deals with asexuality, deals with depression, deals with mental health in general. I thought that was a very, very interesting series. I thought that was really, really well done. So I do it, but I'm not a huge series person in general. How to live with someone with paranoid schizophrenia. Well, the reality is it's very hard. Schizophrenia, and this is not medical advice, it's also not psychological advice because I'm not a clinician, but schizophrenia is a very complicated disorder. And living with someone with such a disorder can be very difficult. So the first, I would say, distinction is whether it is a loved one or whether it is say, romantic partner that makes a difference, right? But it's not easy. And these are very pervasive psychopathologies that even with medication, usually medication helps, but even so, it's complicated and it's difficult to live with. What else do we have? Do you like knives? If so, which one is your favorite? Yes, I do like a good knife, both in the kitchen and in a more outdoorsy fashion. I don't have anything that is incredibly fancy. There are way fancier knives than what I own, and that's perfectly fine with me. For kitchen knives, I will say I have a liking of two brands. I like Global. Global was my first serious kitchen knife brand, and I really like it. That means it has a bit of an emotional connotation. I also really like Shun, and I know that although there are much fancier kitchen knives, I do really like Shun. I like their looks and I like their performance. It's not carbon steel, it's none of that, but I do really like them. As to more outdoorsy EDC type knives, I don't really like tactical looking knives. I like classic knives more. I have a very nice zero tolerance, which was a gift from a friend, which I do really like. That's the most tactical knife I own, but it's not as tactical as some. I like classic looking knives. So I like wood grip scales, bone grip scales, stag grip scales, that kind of stuff. That's something I really like. I like the look of that because in my mind it's a bit less aggressive looking than a lot of tactical knives are. So I don't necessarily have one favorite though. Yeah. Do you still have your katana swords? No, I do not. Those were all sold off when we moved to Canada. What do you think of Newell and the way they took Parker Waterman since before the 90s? Some people say that they sucked the soul out of those brands. I think there are a couple of modern brands that mainly make pens to sell pens. And of course, every brand, I'm just talking about pens, every brand of pen is there for a single purpose, which is to make money, like sell those pens and make money. But the reality is, I think, that there are wonderful artisanally made pens from smaller companies. And then there are these big companies. I'm not trying to harp on Parker or Waterman. I've had some Parkers, I've had some Watermans in my time. But to me, they no longer have the appeal that some other brands do. Now, what I will say is, I'm yet to find a Parker that doesn't write out of the box. I'm yet to find a Waterman that doesn't write out of the box. But when it comes to their designs, I find them a bit conservative. I find them not the most creative. And that can be absolutely fine. It's going to be a reliable pen. I don't know if it's an heirloom pen that's going to be like a magnificent, sort of incredibly elevating type thing. But ask yourself if that's really what you want. If you want a quality everyday writer, I think you could do a lot worse than buy a Waterman or a Parker pen, because again, they're going to be that. They're going to be everyday writers. If you want an artisanally made $4,000 pen, well, then you have that option too, but it's not going to be a Parker, right? So I think that's the choice. Personally, I would take an Edison pen or an Atelier Lusso pen, or, I mean, mention more, Carolina Pen Company. I would take, and there are many more, right? I would take any of those pens over a modern Parker Duofold that may be more expensive than the Edison pen. But I take the Edison. It's made by people I know. It's well made. If there ever is an issue with the pen, I can email those people directly and they will respond to me personally. They will take care of the problem. I can say this from experience. Good luck doing that with Parker. I'm not saying there won't. I once sent in a Parker Frontier that was leaking around the section. I thought they were going to replace the section. They sent me a whole new pen. That's a €30 pen. This is not a massive investment for them. I thought they would just replace the section, the whole pen. I know this because there was a dent in the cap of the barrel. It was gone. So they just sent me a whole new pen, and that's the way they do it. I'm not saying it's that's a nice thing, right? It still had warranty and all that on it. So I'm not complaining about that. It's just that I think these. I'm trying to not wax philosophically here, but I would rather turn to these smaller companies that do what they do and do a very good job at it than the massive conglomerates that make pens, because that's how they make their money. And if they would make more money making rubber boots, then they'd be making rubber boots. They don't have the passion that a lot of these small companies do. And that, I think, is very impressive. And I would rather support a company that has 5 models of pen in a lot of different materials, but 5 models of pen, than a company that has 10 models of pen, but every pen is mass produced. That's just me. But given that you asked my opinion, that's what I would say. So I don't think, so I know I've deviated a bit from the original question, but I would rather do that for me. I would like to know your views on artificial intelligence. I think artificial intelligence is very interesting. I think it is a very promising technology. I don't think it quite warrants the fear that surrounds it, because there's always this sort of Terminator-esque idea of, oh, it's, self-awareness, then everything is going to eradicate humans. The first question that we can ask is, would it be such a shame if the human race was eradicated? But that's a different matter. Very interesting. Does all sorts of interesting things. And I'll give you one example from the field of cognitive neuroscience that I find absolutely fascinating. They did, again, I'll simplify this a little bit, but they put people in a brain scanner, and you can see the activity in the brain. Not necessarily online as it's happening, but you can train someone. So you can show them pictures of all kinds of different, let's say, different houses and different faces, for example. And they did this with more complicated stimuli as well. And then you train an artificial intelligence network, basically. You train that network to say, so you feed it the brain scans of those people. Like they're looking at a house. This is another house. This is another house. There's the activity for another house. Activity for another house. This is a face. This is a face. This is a face. This is a house. This is a face. And you train those networks. And now it turns out that those networks, when you feed them new information they haven't seen before, you say, this is that same person. Tell me what she was looking at. These networks are getting better and better at saying a house, a face, a house, a face. So you can use that technology to read someone's mind, not in a super complicated fashion yet, but how fascinating that we can do this. An interesting application. Think of lie detection. Again, we're not there yet, but think of the potentials that opens up. Think of the potentials that would open up for someone in a coma. Because we know that certain coma patients can answer questions above chance level by thinking of certain activities, like walking through their house for yes, or thinking of playing tennis for no. And above chance level, they answer questions about their lives, about what they're feeling, etc. That's interesting. So I think there are interesting applications. Maybe a controversial topic, being a psychology academic. What do you think of Jordan Peterson, his writings, lectures, and his public profile? I think this. I think that everybody has the right to say what they want to say in principle. But I do think one has to be a little careful with how one says what one wants to say. And I think that some of his ideas are fairly radical. And I don't agree with many of his ideas. But beyond that, there also is the tension between saying what you want to say in such a manner that people listen, and saying what you want to say so that people become polarized. Making people think with what you're trying to say, I think, is a good thing. But sometimes the way a message is brought is such that it offends a lot of people and that it polarizes people. Now, sometimes that's an unintended effect. Everybody says things sometimes, I think, that afterwards they think, oh, I probably shouldn't have put it that way, or maybe I shouldn't have said that way. And that can happen. But when you start to say things on purpose with the goal of kind of shocking people or polarizing people, then I don't believe that's the best way to convey your message. And I feel sometimes often with him that's kind of what he does. And I that's not what I would do. That's not how I would try to convey a message. And that to me kind of ties into also a matter of respect. Sometimes people say things that are interpreted by others as sort of, and I don't mean this in a sacrilegious manner, but the word of God, of, oh, look at how enlightened this person is, and look at how great they are in just saying it the way it is. But just saying it the way it is, first of all, it's not always that way. And secondly, what gives you the right to say it the way it is? Because maybe it's a completely different way altogether. And I think that is something you have to be aware of and careful about. Because you can, again, if you accidentally offend people by something that you say, well, if that truly wasn't an unintended statement, then you can apologize for that and move forward. But once you start to say things on purpose in such a way that you know people are going to be offended, but you say that because you believe it's your right to say that, I don't know if I agree with that. I don't know if I agree with that as an approach. I hope that's a fair answer. I live in a rainy place and I need permanent ink. I've tried De Atramentis and Noodless inks. Do you know of another company that makes permanent ink more pen friendly? Montblanc had a permanent ink a black and a blue, not the most inspired colors, but they were permanent and they were good inks. The Ultramentis you have, you could, if you want, you can try an iron gall ink. That's going to be absolutely waterproof, but you do have to be very careful what pens you put it in. I've never had issues with iron gall inks, but some people complain about molten feeds. But whenever the pen was empty, I would clean it very, very meticulously. I've used it for years without any issues, to be honest. So that's an option too, iron gall ink. And Roro and Klingner make a number of iron gall inks in different colors, which are nice and 100% waterproof. It's a good addition. Yes, I agree in 40 pens not being too many, just pointing out that most people I know wouldn't agree with us. Absolutely. Absolutely. I see your point for sure. Have you ever purchased a fountain pen from an antique shop? No, I've been to flea markets and such, and sometimes you find things, but it's not really, I don't really do that a lot, and that's probably simply because I'm not really into vintage pens, but there are some good deals to be had often, because quite often people don't really know what they're selling, and yeah, so that can be a good way to do it. But again, I'm not really a vintage guy, so. Is the vestibular system part of the central nervous system? It depends a little bit on how you would define central nervous system. Traditionally, we say central nervous system is brain and spinal cord. Well, the vestibular system, like the cochlea, is not part of the brain or the spinal cord, but it provides input. So I would say it's somatic nervous system, peripheral nervous system, because it allows you to interact with the world. Just like your eyes are not part of the central nervous system, but then you have the optic nerves coming out of the eyes, which lead into the brain, and then it becomes central nervous system. Same way with the cochlea and the vestibular system, both provide output through the vestibulocochlear nerve, which is cranial nerve number 8, and that leads into the brain. And at that point, it becomes a central nervous system. So no, until it's yes. Oh, this is a difficult question. By the time you read this, which European country, in your opinion, has the best future to work and live? That is very hard to say, and I would be hesitant to pick one country over the next, but I think there are excellent European countries. I am Dutch. I would be remiss to not mention the Netherlands. I think it is a very interesting place to live and work. It's a very tolerant place in general. I've always been very fond of Germany, so Germany would absolutely be highly on the list as well. I don't know if one is. These are definitely not the only two, and I don't know if one's better than the other. But there are for sure options there. You will have to speak the language. That will help, right? But yeah, no, it's for sure an option. Can a pen last a lifetime? Absolutely. Absolutely. There's no reason not. If you take proper care of it, it absolutely can. What else do we have? I'm going to scroll, and I'm probably going to over scroll, so I'm going to be careful here. Human anatomy is even more insane at the level of proteins and molecules. We have actual V-type generators in our mitochondria. Correct. It's a very, very interesting. I find human anatomy very interesting. And it is absolutely astonishing the kinds of features that the human body has and is capable of. I mean, if you've been here since the start of this video and you're a man, you've produced a few 100,000 sperm just sitting there. I find that fascinating. What else do we have? How many pens a man really needs in his whole lifetime? I think only one, but I failed at making that come true. MK Globetrotter says, thanks for emphasizing the pronunciation of cochlea. Yeah, you know, because I know you, and you're the one who told me about it, because I always said cochlea, and it's much to the dismay of the students. It's now turned into cochlea in class, and I make a point of saying it is actually cochlea, but for some reason they keep saying cochlea. One wonders why. What else do we have? Yeah, while we have frequently differing opinions, I enjoy and respect your reviews. We agreed on The Diplomat Traveler. Yeah. And I think this is the charm of a review, right? And in general, you don't have to agree on everything. And I like bigger pens. It's just the way it is, and many people don't, and that's fine. I don't like really smaller pens. I have one. I like this one. I like the Enso as an XS pocket pen because it's cute, but I don't use this all the time. It's a bit small for me, but I mean it's a fun pen, and I like it, and it does that, which I really enjoy. But yeah, I mean, I like a bigger pen. So for me, there is that, right? There is that issue of, you know, you also have to look at that, like what are the preferences of the person who is doing the actual review, and what does it mean? What does it all mean? You know, again, important thing. And you can always disagree with someone. And I also obviously don't mind if people disagree with me. It lies a bit in how you vent that. Some people are very clear about how wrong I am because I dislike the pen that they like. But I bet that I like some pens that they dislike. Right? Again, that's kind of the charm of having hundreds of pens to choose from, that you will disagree on some things, which is how it should be. Again, this ties into the earlier discussion. It depends a bit on how you choose to present that opinion. And that's why, for me, it's very important to look for positive things in pens. I don't want to do reviews where I harp on and on about how terrible a pen is. Very, very rarely has that happened. But if that did happen, that pen deserved it, because I look for every possible redeeming quality along the way. And there should always be one or two or three, right? Very rarely there are none. Well, then the pen deserves to die. But having said that, to try to be positive. What else do we have? I'm excited to say that I will soon get my first Old Wind Classic into B.R.E Impero. I know you like the Arco Bronze. What other classic finish might you like to get your hands on? First of all, congratulations, because that is a very nice pen. The Tibaldi, that is a very nice material, that specific celluloid. So I wouldn't mind that. I also wouldn't mind a green, an Arco Verde. But again, although it's tempting, I have the brown Arco, and I don't want to amass all these different variations of pens. But it was a good question, and I like it. Yeah. What else? I live with someone that had paranoid schizophrenia. Best tip: never lie to them. Yeah, that's fair. Yep. Can a Mont Blanc 149 really hold up a full human life? Yes. What else do we have? Oh, this is very interesting. There is a YouTube channel called Living Well with Schizophrenia, which is interesting as it gives the perspective of the person living with schizophrenia and that of her partner. That is very interesting. Thank you for sharing that, because I wasn't aware of that, but I will check that out because I find that very interesting too. Yeah, thank you. Greetings from Groningen, all the way in the Netherlands. It's late in the Netherlands, isn't it? Look at this dedication. Yeah, John, that's exactly it. You nailed it. I'm going to read this one. I find with Peterson that he can make his ideas sound reasonable at first glance. And it's not until you stop and think that you realize what he's saying, what he's really saying is deeply unpleasant. Yeah, yeah. I found that too. I think that's exactly the way I would put it as well. And this is a dangerous thing, I find, which is not to demonize Jordan Peterson. It's just a matter of, I think you have to be careful with that kind of behavior in general. When people are very good speakers, and I think he is a very good speaker, right? Then you can convince people of certain things because of your rhetoric, because of the way you can present arguments or you know, stuff, whatever you're trying to convey. But then if people analyze what you're really saying and say, wait a minute, are you seriously suggesting X, Y, or Z? That always makes me a little nervous. This is, I'm just going to give this example. I don't know if it's interesting to people, but I found this. I learned early on in teaching things. I teach different things, right? I teach, as I said, but if you tune in later, for example, I teach introductory psychology. That's pretty easy because it's introductory psychology. I have a PhD in psychology, so I should be able to do this with my eyes closed, and I think I can. But then there are harder things: statistics, cognitive neuroscience, as we just did, sensation and perception. And you simply can't know everything. Even with intro psych, sometimes students ask you something, I think I'd never thought about that, right? It is tempting to confabulate and something on the spot, come up with something, but it may not be a correct answer. It may not be the real answer. I think a much better teaching practice, which I learned early on in teaching because I think it's the best way to do it, is to be able to say, I don't know. I don't know the answer to this question. I'm going to look it up, and I'm going to come back to you next time. As opposed to making something up on the spot and saying it confidently. Because if I right now say, you see this yellow thing, it's called the hypoglossal nerve. Well, unless you know your cranial nerves, you know that this cannot be the hypoglossal nerve that innervates the tongue muscles, below the tongue, hypoglossal. So that makes your tongue move, you know, that kind of stuff. But this is the ear. But if I say that, if you don't know the cranial nerves, how do you know that I'm wrong, right? And that leads us to dangerous territory. Just saying. That's the vestibulocochlear nerve, for the record. What fountain pen can I get that won't leak ink going from a cool room to a 100+ Fahrenheit car? I don't think any pen. I think any kind of fountain pen is going to have issues with that, because that's such an extreme temperature difference. It's likely to do something with expanding air and leaking. A pencil wouldn't leak. Always a pencil. Thoughts on Gustav Mahler? Yeah, I find some of his music a bit heavy, but there are certain things, certain of his compositions I think are really, really beautiful. I really like, I know the name of the piece. Urlicht. What symphony? I want to say Fourth Symphony, but I don't know if it's true. I'm in doubt now. Anyway, that's a very beautiful vocal piece that I really, really like. In a person with OCD, PTSD, and depression, is there a sequence of treatment with medications? For example, would you focus on OCD and then tackle the next issue? Realistically, there probably is. Now, as a psychologist, I can't prescribe medication, and I'm not a clinician. So this is somewhat out of my field. Having said that, typically there are specific orders for treatment. For example, and I'm not saying this is the case, I'm just saying, for example, imagine this scenario where someone has OCD, PTSD, and depression. If someone is suicidally depressed in this scenario, then the depression probably needs to be treated first because someone is suicidal, and it doesn't really make sense to treat OCD if someone hurts themselves, right? So there is a sequence. What sequence that is, that will depend on a specific person, and it may be a matter of we have to do the depression and PTSD first at the same time and then do the OCD. But if the OCD, for example, is so bad that someone can't leave the house because they're afraid of infection or whatever, however this particular OCD manifests, well, then that may require treatment immediately. If it's, for example, a relatively light depression in combination with that, relatively, right? So this would really be up to a clinician and maybe a multidisciplinary team of, say, a psychologist and a psychiatrist and maybe other specialists to discuss amongst themselves too. But usually I would say the answer is yes. There typically is the worst problem, and the worst problem needs attending to, because without that you're not going to be able to treat the other issues. How are you doing? Asks Joe. I'm doing pretty well. How about you? No. I know that you mentioned Albert Camus was on your reading list. No, haven't had a chance yet. But yes, but no. You recently made a paper notebook review. I could not open their page. You know something about that? Is that Archie? I had Archie's calligraphy. It's opening here. So if that one was it should work now. Which big pen do you think is the best for long writing sessions? My hands get tired, cramped with the more slim pens. Well, there are many, many, many options, right? But, I mean, Pelikan M800, Pelikan M1000, I think are nice bets. They're not huge, but they are nice writers. Have you heard of or tried a Palomino Blackwing pencil? Yeah, yes, and yes. I have and I have. But I'm not a pencil person. To me, I know this is going to sound really weird because I have some expensive fountain pens. So the pencil lovers, please forgive me. But to me, Palomino Blackwing feels the same as a $1 Walmart pencil. I know this is stupid because, again, I have expensive pens, and but to me, and that's because I'm not trained in the use of a pencil. I'm also not trained in the use of a fountain pen, I guess. But I mean, I learned to write with pencils in school, but then we moved to fountain pens. I've been using fountain pens for such a long time that I know what I like. I haven't used pencils so much, so I don't know what I like, and that means that I also don't know what to look for. I don't know what sets apart a Palomino Blackwing $20 pencil from a $2 pencil. I just don't know. I don't know what to look for, and as a result, I can't appreciate it. It'll be the same thing. I mean, I don't drink alcohol, so right now you can give me a $500 bottle of wine, and to me it would be the exact same thing as a $2 bottle of wine because I don't know what to look for. I hope that makes sense. I'm not trying to harp on Palomino. I'm sure they're great pencils for the specific purpose they were made for, and I know people love them. But I'm not one of those people because I don't use it. It wasn't meant to sound snarky. I'm just saying, like, I just don't know how to evaluate them, and therefore I don't appreciate them. But I don't really use pencils. Period. I have one mechanical pencil, which is a Kurutoga by Uni, which I have here, which was a gift from a friend, which I really like. But that's pretty much the only thing I use that's a pencil. Sorry. How awesome is it to have such success with your own ink? Any more in the works? It's very awesome to have this much success with an ink, and I'm very, very grateful. And I do mean that because it's a very humbling experience. Now, remember when we did the initial batch That was before the Ackermann bottles. That was La Couronne du Comte a couple of years ago. And the entire batch was sold out in something like 72 hours. And we had 300 bottles. And that is amazing. And I find it fascinating that, sure, it's slowed down a little bit, but even so, I can buy 40 liters of the ink and have it shipped to Ackermann. And Ackermann does all the work, and they deserve mad props for that, because they do the bottling, they do the labeling, they do the shipping. I don't have to, all I do is tell Diamine I need more ink, and Diamine sends my ink there. If you care, in 5-liter jugs. So again, the bottling, everything is done by Ackermann. It's a lot of work. And still the ink sells out. Every time the runs sell out in a reasonable time frame, no longer in 72 hours. And that's what I would expect. And I'm also happy that that's the case, if nothing else than for Ackermann, right? But it's a humbling experience. And I think what it says, of course, there is the component to it of people buying the ink because they want to support me. And that's incredibly kind and sweet and nice, and that alone is a very wonderful experience, and also a humbling experience. But what I think this also suggests, at least to me, is that we, and when I say we, none of this credit belongs to me, right? But that we hit the nail on the head with the ink. People like the ink, and I'm biased. I'm very, very biased for obvious reasons regarding this ink, because it's my ink. But I love it, and I love the color. I love the shading. I love the way it behaves, and I think it suggests, the success of the ink suggests that people love it, and that people are happy with the color. And again, the credit goes to Diamine for blending the ink, because I'm just said, this is the color I'm looking for. They blend one, the first sample I immediately loved, so there was no back and forth. They have they deserve credit for that. Ackermann deserves insane credit, because you do have to understand, whenever the ink goes back in stock, I at some point, Paul, the store manager, sent me a picture of the first day, the day after the ink was launched, and they had a little cart with boxes and mail bags full of ink that people had bought. And Ackermann does everything. Again, the bottling, the labeling, the shipping, the everything, they deal with everything. If a bottle of ink breaks in the mail, they have to supply a new bottle. It's not me. It's them dealing with all those logistics. So the credit for this entire SBREBROWN ink project doesn't lie with me in any way, shape, or form. All I've done is suggest a color. It turned out nicely, and all I do is show it once in a while so people know it's around. But everything else is done by others, for which I am massively grateful. But it is a very, very interesting feeling, and it's a very interesting thing to have your own ink. But that's not unique. You could have your own ink tomorrow. You contact Diamine, they blend it for you, they send it to you, and it's exclusive to you. So that's not what makes it unique. It's the response of the community to it that makes it unique, and that I think is very, very interesting. There's follow-up questions. When is the ink coming back? As I understand it, Ackermann has the ink, but last time I checked, they were waiting for empty bottles, the glass bottles. And the reality is that in a pandemic world, if we talk about essential businesses, maybe glass blowers, people making, I don't know if those bottles are hand blown. I don't know. I'm not part of that part of the house of Ackermann. That's just not my, not I don't want to say my concern, but I mean that's not my my involvement. So I don't know, but they were awaiting shipments of bottles, empty bottles. So I think they have my ink, and I think once they have bottles, empty bottles, they will sell ink again. But right now it's waiting for that. So it's not the ink, it's the containers we actually need to wait for. Hi, I followed you for years, and I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Thank you. Greetings from Siberia. Greetings back. I bet it's nice and nippy in Siberia right now. Have you still got those Soviet pens from review? Have you ever tried Russian inks? I've not tried Russian inks, and I think those Soviet pens I ended up selling to someone who was interested in Russian things. Yeah. Yeah. What else do we have? Have you ever used a Francis Goosen's pen? His custom creations? Yes. I have. Yes. I know I have held them and I have used them. They belong to a friend. Very nice work. He does very nice work. It's not exactly cheap, these pens, but they are very, very interesting pens. Yeah. What else do we have? What is your professional opinion on shock treatment for someone who is not schizophrenic or suicidal? The problem with shock therapy, which we now call electroconvulsive therapy, right, is that we don't know how it works. As far as I understand the literature, we still don't understand how it works. But we do know that in severe cases, for example, of depression, it works. Now, having said that, electroconvulsive therapy is no longer what you saw in One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. I'm not saying but I'm saying in general, it's not like that. So typically now they give people muscle relaxants, they give people painkillers. So they give people, often you're out. So you're basically anesthetized when it happens. Is that relevant? Yes, because there are reported cases of electroconvulsive therapy back in the day when shocks are run through your brain and your muscles clench up so much that people broke their own bones. So clearly that's not particularly fun as an experience. Having said that, although we don't fully understand how it works, I mean, why it has a therapeutic effect. There are theories about it kind of resetting memory and doing that kind of stuff. We do know that in some cases it works. We know that in some, for example, very severe cases of depression, it does something. People feel better. If people feel better, why deny them that therapy? It makes me nervous if you're doing something not knowing why it works. But on the other hand, as I said, again, if it does work, why worry? If it does something for someone, then maybe do it anyway. But this is a severe measure. So it's not typically a matter of, well, again, I'm not saying that you say this. It's not a matter of, well, I feel a little depressed, let's do ECT. It's more a matter of very severe cases of depression, suicidal depression, depression that doesn't respond to medication of any kind, that doesn't do well with therapy. Then that is something that is and does get considered. So, yeah, that would be my opinion. What languages do you speak and how to learn and practice them by myself? Well, I speak Dutch, English, German, I would say in that order. And I did learn French in school, but my French isn't very good. I also had to take Latin and Greek for a year. Ancient Greek. So nobody speaks Latin and Greek, but you can understand it. I don't understand it. I have a basic working knowledge because it was only 1 year. I can read the Greek. I can write the Greek. I can read and write Cyrillic and Old Church Slavonic. I taught myself those because I thought it was interesting. Which doesn't mean I speak Russian. I can just read the script. How do you learn them and practice them by yourself? It's hard to learn a language by yourself because you don't know if what you're doing is wrong. So you don't know if you make mistakes in pronunciation and grammar, in my mind. But having said that, those kinds of apps like Duolingo, they do turn out to work pretty well. So there's always that as an option. Beyond that, it's a matter of practice. You have to practice, right? You have to practice and do it again and again and again, and not be afraid of making mistakes, getting a certain self-confidence. Yeah. Yeah. So for all of us here, people who like the ink, thank you. Again, there should be more coming. It's not when there is a delay, as I just talked about delay, I'm not going to go and get to that story again, but when there is a delay, it usually is a matter of getting the ink back to Ackermann. And then what you do have to understand, and I think we should all respect, is even when Ackermann has the inks, they also need to have the time to process it. Because bear in mind, when I say the ink is available again, they're going to get dozens of orders. I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say that, in the first 24 hours, because everybody wants that ink. We don't try to create a rush. We don't try to make it exclusive. So sometimes they already have the ink, but it takes them 2 weeks or 4 weeks to be ready to sell it. Again, think about it. 60 milliliter bottles. You need to take the marble out. You need to put a label on. You need to put the ink in. You need to put the marble back in. You need to put it in a box. You need to put a label on the box. Think of that step. And now think about how many bottles you get out of 40 liters. 666. So you do that process six. That's very, sorry, but like, think about it. Was it 333? 666. I remember correctly. That's probably why. Anyway, they have to have time for that. Right? And I'm not saying they do all 600 balls at the same time, but they have to have time. And they also have a shop, and they also have other orders. Like it's a brick and mortar store, they have walk-in traffic. They also have other orders. So there are practicalities. But again, we're not trying to make it exclusive. If you want the ink, we want you to have access to it. And I keep ordering it. So it's at no point have I thought this is going to be the last batch we'll ever do. So if it's not there now, it'll be there at some point. That's really, in my mind, as long as Ackerman is interested, because again, they do the work, I'm interested. And you, at some point, will be able to get the ink. Yeah. I'm just saying we have about 4 minutes. I want to cap this at 2 hours simply because otherwise we can do this all night. And although I like doing it all night. So she said, I do have work things tomorrow. What else do we have? I ordered the Conway Stewart 100 in amber after recently viewing your review from about 8 years ago. Yeah, I remember the Conway Stewart. That was nice. Model 100. Yeah. Do you enjoy pipes or cigars? I like looking at pipes, but I don't smoke, so I don't know. It's an interesting question and a complicated one because I don't know if I can limit myself to one, but what book has been the most influential in your intellectual development or in cultivating your professional interests? For me, what has been crucial have initially been professional books. I'm just talking about textbooks, but studying psychology, learning about the scientific method, learning about experiments, learning about critical thought, those things have made a big difference. And once you start to think about the world from the perspective of scientific thinking, I'm not saying science is the answer to everything, but I do think it is the answer to 99.9% of our problems. The world becomes a very different place. And certain things, superstitions, certain mythical or religious beliefs, I don't say anything about anyone, and everyone's free to believe what they want to believe, but certain beliefs suddenly come to be viewed from a very different perspective. And that to me has been liberating. Yeah. To everyone, this is a recent book. I read this recently, but it's been an excellent book that's highly recommended. Is a book by Carl Sagan called The Demon Haunted World, because it very much explains a lot of these things, UFO sightings and this kind of stuff, without, and this ties into what we were discussing before, without being belittling, without making fun of anyone. I think Carl Sagan in that regard was an inspiration because he was respectful. He was respectful of everyone. And that, I think, is something we can use more of in this world. Even when you disagree with someone, you can be respectful about it. What reasonably priced pen, relatively speaking, with a gold nib that's good for everyday writing, in your opinion? All kinds of options. Many options. Again, we've talked about Leonardo a number of times. Leonardo with a gold nib is not an inexpensive upgrade because it's basically as much as the pen, but you will have a very nice pen that writes very nicely, I think. Do you have any interest in programming or mathematics? I do like some mathematics. Teaching stats sometimes comes up. And I do know how to code in MATLAB, and I've always really enjoyed that. Always find it very interesting. All right. Here's the thing. It's 2 hours. Let's call it a day or a night. Thank you all for being here. Sometimes this happens. People ask me, what can I do to support you? Well, if you go to patreon.com/SBREBROWN, you can support my videos financially. You don't have to. I love you just as much if you don't. But if you do want to contribute something, that's always something that you can do. And that's pretty much it. So thank you very much for being here. The recording will be on YouTube shortly. And that's pretty much it. I will try to do this again at some point. I don't know when exactly, but at some point we shall do this again. I will gladly see you later. Bye-bye. Have a good night or day, depending on where you are.